Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? I've gone around to a few tables and asked people what they want to talk about. And inevitably, it is, what is Biz Squared? Is that what you guys are? They paint pretty pictures with data. They're not sure how you're supposed to use those pretty pictures, but you're supposed to. And so my commercial endorsement is for Biz Squared, and make sure you buy their product and see if you can do something with it. The real issue, though, is everybody's here trying to sell something. Everybody's here trying to further their business, and that's great. But somebody asked me a few minutes ago what I thought the future of gaming was. Somebody else said, how come casinos won't listen? How come we bring them this new stuff and they won't buy it? Somebody else says, how come we don't have any new players? How come our revenues aren't going up? And we take all those things, and if we look into the past and we pick any two data points, and we make the crazy assumption that we can predict the future by drawing a line that goes between those two, that connects those two data points and goes out into the future, our future for this industry is death. This gambling industry that we are in is one that is dying. It is one that is obsolete. It is one that has seen its best days, and they're going away. And nobody likes to hear that. Nobody in the horse race industry liked to hear that their product was decaying. They lived in tradition. They lived in process, and they're dying in it. Nobody in the bookstores wanted to believe that their product could ever go away. Nobody that ran Newsweek magazine and published it thought that their product could go away. Nobody that made CDs and sold them in stores thought that their product could go away. The point is, we have a business that believes that we are entitled to customers. We believe that because we've met the regulatory obligations to have a license, that we are therefore entitled to a share of customers. What we don't realize is consumers don't need us. We in the casino business are really in the entertainment business. We're not here to pay people more money than they spend. We are here to collect money from people. That means that if we offer them prizes, we're really only offering them the chance to win. And that if we market our casinos as saying, come in and you will win $1 million, you're not going to have a very faithful customer for long because they're not going to get that $1 million. We've got a real identity crisis, and we have to choose what we're going to do about it. We have this thing called the internet, which a lot of land-based casinos view as a competitor, when actually that technology could be the casino savior. We have people over on the internet that are trying to attract customers. They're taking this new idea, this new way of reaching people, and they're putting the old product that is dying away in the casino upon it. I just was at an iGaming conference in the Netherlands last week, and they're in the same shape as the land-based casinos. They're desperate for new players. Right now, they have what they call their affiliate programs, where they'll pay half of their revenue if you bring them new customers. The fact is, we don't know how to reach customers. We never had to learn. I started in this business in 1972. Back then, Nevada was the only place in the country that had legalized gambling. There were very few lotteries. So Nevada did really well. We didn't have to work real hard. People came in, spent money, went away. Didn't matter if they ever came back. Then New Jersey legalized, and then the riverboats legalized, and then some land-based casinos started to legalize, and we saw this rising tide of new casinos opening, partly because governments have an incessant desire for more revenue, partly because the moral objection to gambling disappeared. But we opened places and they filled up, and we opened more places and they filled up. And we decided that we must be pretty smart, because every place we opened was busy. What we didn't realize was we were serving pent-up demand. We were no different than the loggers up in Oregon that were out there felling as many trees as they could, selling them as quickly as they could, because it seemed like those forests went off into infinity. Until one day, you chop down a tree and you look past the horizon and you see the ocean and the trees are gone. And we've gone through our customers very quickly. And now what we have is we have a situation where we have casinos that are making money, that have significant bills to pay, that have huge employee costs. And we have a certain customer base that is loyal and happy, but that customer base is getting old. By our measure, the average casino customer has aged by 8 years in the past 10. 10 years ago, the average casino customer that we see in local places was 53 years of age. Today, it's 61. What that means is that younger people aren't coming along to gamble. They just don't like watching those three reels spin. And because of tradition and regulation, we're not offering them anything different. Instead, when we buy games for our casinos, we put it in on a trial, we watch it run, and if it doesn't do twice house average, we get rid of that game. Does that mean that we put that game on the floor, that we make more money? Or does it just mean that we're shifting the players that we have from the games they used to like to the new games? And that as we use these popularity contests to measure our games, we're doing nothing at all to reach out and find new players. What do we do with our database? We go to all this effort to sign up new people. There's huge money being spent to issue cards to people. And then what do? In 2 years, we'll go through and say, anybody that hasn't played at least this much, we're just going to purge them because they don't matter. And we paid a ton of money to get this name in. Now we're going to spend a little bit more money to throw it out. And maybe, to me, our opportunity in the future is not to continue to market to the people that we currently serve. I mean, you have to, but you've got to take a portion of your effort and you've got to start taking those people that don't come in and really learn to understand why they don't. What do we have to offer to get them to come in? Because they're our future. You've done a magnificent job. We've done a magnificent job as an industry of reaching as deeply into the pockets of our existing customers as is humanly possible. We're very efficient with the people that have an affinity for the games that we have. We're horribly inefficient with everybody else. And that everybody else, by our measurements, accounts for 93% of the adult population. Only 7% of the adult population, by our measure, gambles more than twice a year. That means that 93% don't like what we're selling. And what do we do to change? Nothing. Going back to some of the small suppliers that are here. Why don't casinos buy our products? Somebody else was saying, you know, I remember I was telling people here about what it was like 10 and 20 years ago and about how, you know, before it was IGT, we had Acres Gaming and we had Casino Data and we had all these other smaller suppliers. And they're all gone now. They're all gone. They're all merged into monolithic companies that sell you maintenance contracts and don't give you much in the way of new services. But you continue to buy. And you refuse to buy from the small innovative companies because their product isn't proven. You don't want to take a risk, and that's understandable. But if you don't take a risk, you cannot possibly change. What you're doing now is not going to carry you well into the future. You must change. The fact is, though, that we don't have an infrastructure for change, that no small company can survive without customers. And that's the casino's problem, too. We all need new revenues. Is there anybody here that doesn't need new revenues? And if we're going to look for new revenues, we must try new ways. And if we're going to try new ways, we must take risk. We must be willing to do things that don't work. Because trying new things and having something that that might not work at first, but you can improve upon, is way better than continuing to do what is already proven not to work anymore. When we talk about, when I hear the companies and the casinos talk about how to use the internet, inevitably it is how to extend our existing offers to new people. What's the point? They don't want your offer. They don't want $20 the free play. They don't want $40. They want an exciting experience. And watching 3 spinning reels doesn't do it. Watching 5 spinning reels doesn't do it. And having 89 different lines that you can win on that I can't figure out doesn't do it either. If we don't back up and change everything, we got no future. I was talking to a guy last night. Excuse me, I gotta get a drink of water. A guy that I was talking to last night, his name is Don Spears. He runs the Verona Casino. And oddly, they're in Southern California. They're in a difficult location. You got to go down a 20-mile road that's not the easiest to drive. There are other casinos that are very close by. And I say, hey, Don, how's it going? He goes, never been better. Our profits are up. Our business is up. Now, he's taken that not by getting new players so much, but by taking players from other casinos around. Now, how does he do this? How is it that his place that's so hard to get to is attracting all these players? How is it that his profits and his revenues are growing every year, even through the recession? And I said that. How is it? He goes, oh, that's easy. We remove our automation. We remove our bill breakers. We remove our Tito ticket machines that cash out. We want them to be done by people. We continue to add more and more people to the floor because that's what generates business. And I go, well, Don, geez, automation is supposed to save you money. It's supposed to lower your costs. And he goes, yeah, but it lowers my play too. And so we got into this interesting conversation about how we manage. And this is something that those of you that operate casinos have to ask yourselves. And it's really easy to pick on the casinos. And I want to back up here for a second. All of us in this industry are guilty of accepting the status quo. All of us are guilty of doing what worked yesterday. All of us are guilty of not trying to do more new things. But what he's telling me is that if he sits in his back room and looks at spreadsheets, those spreadsheets tell him that he can reduce his labor costs, that he can have higher floor efficiency, that he can make more money that way, because it shows right there. You change this number up here, and the great thing about spreadsheets, it just ripples through that whole sheet in about a nanosecond, and it says, boom, more money. But the weird thing is, they go out and they do that, and the actuality ripples through and comes out, boom, less money. So the spreadsheet says we're supposed to get more by cutting costs. Reality says when we cut costs, we see revenues go down. So what do the spreadsheet guys say? Let's cut costs some more. We can't afford to do that anymore. Let's take this away, let's take this away, let's take this away, let's do with fewer people. And then we say, oh, that must work because the spreadsheet says it does. But reality's different. And what Don does is he does this weird thing. He goes out from behind the casino, in the offices there, and he goes onto the casino floor. And he talks to people. And he asks them what they want. And what we find again, and what we're reminded of, is that people do not come to casinos to win money. People come to casinos to feel like winners. They come to be recognized, they come to be honored, they come to be respected, they come to win at something because they're trying to escape their everyday life that's chock full of disappointments, just like ours are. You know, we spend our lives fighting battles, and we lose many of them. That's just life. Life is hard. And casinos are supposed to be entertainment. Casinos are supposed to be recreation. Recreation is really recreation. When you go to the casino, you have the opportunity to experience a microcosm of life where you're going to take risk and you're going to get rewards, and you're going to have losses. And if you persevere and you overcome those losses, you will get wins. Our challenge is not to change the math of the machine or to be so involved with how the symbols look on the machines, but to realize that the true gaming experience occurs between each player's ears and nowhere else. It is the feeling that we impart upon them. And the more we reduce our people on the floor, the more we automate our casinos, the more those human beings that we want to have as customers feel like numbers. The longer our list of rules get on our players' clubs, the less important people feel. And we spend all of our time devising how not to get ripped off, how not to lose. And in doing so, we are forgetting to entertain and delight the people that are coming there for that service. And so what Don has found is that if he puts more people on the floor, it's not so much that the customer enjoys going up to a human being saying, give me change. In a lot of ways, they'd really prefer for that instant transaction just to use a machine. But what Don has done is he's trained his people to interact, to start conversations with the customers, not just say, yeah, here's your change. And we've all been there. You've all been to restaurants and businesses where you are treated like a transaction. And you've all been to restaurants and businesses where you're treated like a valued customer, where you have an experience. And frankly, we've lost that. We've lost the ability to treat our customers like valued people. We've lost the ability to treat them like human beings. We think it's all about the money because we're so buried in our spreadsheets that we can't see the rest. We're so busy going to meetings. We're so busy cycling through, scheduling people to be on the floor. Or if you're in the supplier business, we're so busy trying to figure out how to present a product that you might want to buy that we don't step back and think about what's needed to bring truly new players to the casino. We are not working as partners. We are working as adversaries. And we are working towards building a lie. We're all in this business, taking ourselves into a future that you have to look at yourself and realize there is no future with the way we're going. But there is a tremendous future if we change. There's nothing special about the internet. If we take this, how many of you are familiar with Coke? Anybody that's not? You ever look at the history of Coca-Cola? This company started in 1885. And to get it, you would have to go into a drugstore. Let me get this. So if I went to the drugstore, the chemist, as they called him then, would pour me a glass and charge me a nickel. And I would drink that, not so much for the taste of it, but for the medicinal benefits. And Coke had some interesting medicinal benefits. They had some flavoring. They used cocoa leaves, which were new, and provided that kind of bitter taste that we're all used to, that humans typically like. It had some sugar in it that gave you a little bit of a rush, and it had a whole lot of caffeine. And we all know what caffeine does for us. But the best ingredient that Coke had was about 9 milligrams of cocaine in every glass. And that's why they say that Coke refreshes. Because you could go in and drink a glass and feel pretty darn good going out of there. And they sold a ton of stuff for a while until people realized the long-term downside to cocaine. And they made cocaine illegal. So what does Coca-Cola do? Do they go, oh, guess we're out of business. I guess we got nothing left. They back up and they do this really interesting thing. They start to market. But they don't market it anymore as a medicinal drink. They don't market it even for the taste. If you look at any Coca-Cola ad, it's always about emotional gratification. If you drink Coke, you're one of the in crowd. You're accepted. You've got family and friends around you. And by drinking that, we associate those feelings with that beverage. until we come to demand it everywhere. You're hard-pressed to go into any place and not be able to buy Coke in one form or another. I can buy it by the glass in a restaurant. I can buy it by the bottle at a 7-Eleven. I can buy it in a cup. I can buy it in 5 different sizes of cups. I can buy it in 30 different sizes of bottles, whatever I could possibly want. They've made it convenient for me. But even though Coke has tremendous name recognition, do they stop marketing? No. They continue to strive to associate their brand with emotional gratification. And that's our opportunity. If we could find a way to associate casino gaming with the joy of accomplishment, we have a winner. That's a lot of work. When I started in this business again in '72, one of the first guys I ever talked to was a guy named Benny Binion. And he ran the Horseshoe downtown, very successful person, very people-oriented person. And I asked him early on, I said, what is gaming anyway? And he says, let me tell you. He says, here's the basic rule. People, human beings like you and me, hate to be fooled. If you fool me, if you lie to me, I will hate you forever. I will never trust you. But human beings also delight in a chance to fool themselves. And he says, and that's my business. I help people fool themselves, which is what we call entertainment. I let them come in. I let them feel like they're going to win. I let them hold awards, because he was all table games then. I give them any limit that they want. I set the game up for them. I recognize them. I comp them. I treat them like kings. And they spend money with me, and they're willing to come back. Because from their perspective, they're important. They got a service of value. That's not a ripoff. That's not cheating. It's not wrong. But he knew what value he was offering. And a lot of guys in the early '70s knew that. Then as we got into this expansion phase and the regulations became thicker and harder to navigate, the industry rightly decided that a gaming license was a ticket to revenue, a ticket to open. And so we automated everything that we possibly could so that we could open as many casinos as quickly as we could. That makes great sense. And that worked for as long as we were serving pent-up demand. But if you look at your marketing materials in the casinos, or ours in the industry, or any of the services here, there's nothing that we do to create new customers. There's nothing that we do to invite new players except send them $20 worth of free play offers. Oh, I guess they don't like it because they didn't respond. We can't simply call ourselves marketers by sending traditional offers to new people. We've got to back them up with brand new experiences. The experiences that we can back them up with, the experiences that humans crave, is uncertain outcomes. You've all seen or maybe a lot of you have seen the B.F. Skinner experiments with the chicken, where you can put a chicken in a cage and give him a little feeder, and if you fill it up with food, and every time he pecks, he gets food to eat, that chicken will only peck on that feeder when it's hungry. If you remove all the food and never have anything there, that chicken will peck and peck and peck for a while, then finally give up and never peck again. If, though, you put an uncertain outcome there, if sometimes food comes in, sometimes it doesn't, that chicken's going to be there pecking all day because he wants to see if he's going to get anything. And human nature, it's not fair to say that that's exactly what human nature is, but unexpected outcomes provide stimulus. And that's what casinos are there for. Am I going to win or am I going to lose? But we've created so much confusion and so much burden and so many preconceived notions around it that we're not offering these things in ways that people enjoy anymore. My father grew up for entertainment when he was a kid, listening to the Lone Ranger on the radio. That was his idea of entertainment. That's all there was. So when he grew up and he could go to a casino and see 3 spinning reels, that seemed pretty cool. That was right there. I grew up in the mid-50s, and I could watch the Lone Ranger on television. Now, for me to be happy, I got to see 5 reels spinning, You know, the bar has been raised. My kids, though, they grew up with Nintendos and Xboxes, and before they left home, they had the internet. Well, they're not going to be happy watching these passive games. They want this thing that they call interactivity that we refuse to give. You know, we have all these laws that have been passed in New Jersey and Nevada where we have what's called interactive licenses. And it's a sham. It's just a way for the state to charge larger amounts of money and take a bigger tax and offer the same damn stuff that nobody wants to play anyway. There's no interactivity to it. Interactivity means you want skill, you want influence, you want a chance to make a difference. And we don't have that ability right now. And we don't ask for it. So unless we change, we got some serious problems. But the good news is there's huge opportunity to change, to take this thing called the internet and realize that it's nothing but a delivery mechanism through which you can pump new experiences. We can give people games to play at home for free through which they win things at the casino. I used to work with a company called Game Logic that ultimately got bought by Scientific Games. This was 5 years ago. And what we did there was we replaced the free play coupons. Let's say I'm going to mail all of my database a $20 coupon, okay? $20 worth of free play. What we found was the redemption rate was, let's say it was 8%. And I forget what it exactly was, but it was a low number because people get used to them and they don't think it's special anymore. So what Game Logic did is instead of mailing everybody a $20 free play coupon, they instead mailed everybody a code. And that code, if you go to a website and enter it, entitled you to play like 100 free games. And in playing those games, you could win free play at the casino. What was the average win across all people? 20 bucks. Some people won 5, some people won 50. The net average was 20. Exactly the same cost. But people had a chance to win. They felt like they earned it. Redemption rates went up by 3x. 3 times as many people redeemed what they won over redeeming what they were given. Because in one way, it's an entitlement. It means nothing. Everybody gets it. In another way, I earned it. Just things as simple as that can make a huge difference in reaching people. The other thing I want you to think about is just because Charlie Fay, the inventor of the slot machine, came up with this idea of spinning reels in 1898, I believe it was, does that really mean it's the best game we can offer? Have we taken the last 100 years of technological advances and continued to use them to mimic what Charlie came up with 120 years ago? Is it time for a new game? Do we really need the visuals that we think? In fact, in my own company now, we're realizing that if we look at the problem of reaching people on the go, that if we want to create a really rich visual experience for them, we got to get them to download an app. How many of you have smartphones? How many of you have ever been asked to download an app? How many of you are sick of it? And so we look at this and we go, oh my gosh, we could invest our resources into developing apps for all these ever-changing number of phones that are out there and then beg people to download them before we can engage. Or we can stand back and realize there's one app that everybody already has on their phone. You guys know what that is? The one app that everybody has, that everybody uses. What's that? I'm sorry? Internet, one more, one step closer. Text. Text is the universal application that's heavily used by almost everybody. So when we start thinking, we want to take some of the things that we did with the Game Logic, and we want to express them in easier to reach ways. And so we've given up on the idea of graphical interfaces, and we're going to text. Because we think that we can create exciting experiences for people between their ears. And I got this enlightenment about a year ago. I was in the Chicago airport, O'Hare, waiting for a delayed flight. And I'm walking around, and here sits in one of these chairs this guy. He's about 10 years younger than me, and his face is just beet red. I mean, he is furious, and he's just pecking away at his phone. I can tell he's writing a text, and he sends that off, and he sits there, and his phone goes ding, and he looks at it, and he's even madder. And you realize that all of these emotions are communicated through text. Everything that was needed is there if we just get creative. If we as an industry can allow us to try new things, to not insist that the new game look just like the old one but a different color, we've got opportunity. But every time that you tell a new vendor, like BizSquared, I honestly don't know if BizSquared has anything good or not. I don't know. I just know that they're a small company that's out there trying. But if they run into the same wall of bureaucracy that others have run into, they'll disappear before they even have a chance. And if we can give companies like that an honest chance, if we can, if the casinos can realize that you've got to support, to some extent, new ideas if you want to have those new ideas, then we have a chance. And maybe BizSquared will do well, maybe they won't, but they'll succeed or they'll fail on their own. And that's cool. That's what it's all supposed to be about. When I started in this business, we could do that. When I started, I had this idea in 1981 for a progressive jackpot. And back then, there were few and far between. That was the first thing we did at EDT before we did player tracking. I went down to see a guy named Steve Wynn at the Golden Nugget. Showed him what we're doing, and it was a great process back then because you just go in, you describe it, and he says, "What's that going to cost?" And if I remember right, I said something like $12,000. And he says, "Okay, if it works, I'll buy it." And I said, "Yeah, but I don't have any money, because I started my first company with $200. And he says, "Well, what do you need?" I said, "Can I get half as a deposit?" And he goes, "I don't know you." I said, "Yeah, but here's what I can do," and blah blah blah. And finally he says, "Okay." So he takes me over to the accounting department. I walk away with a check. Now that would never happen today. And what Steve told me as I was walking out the door is he says to me, he says, "Let me tell you," he says, "you got $6,000 of my money." He says, "If you take it, don't come back, I'll survive. You won't." And you kind of think about that for a while, and I like to think that all he meant was he wouldn't buy anything more. But the fact was that there was a lot of opportunity then to try new things. And as a result, when those new things were tried, things grew. Doesn't mean that everything we tried worked. It didn't. But even those, what we now call failures, we could count as milestones of learning. We learn how our customers react, and we can move on. Now, I started EDT in 1981 with literally $200. I quit my job. I had 2 kids. I'd been in the Air Force, so we were living in Indiana. I'd been an engineer at General Motors, and I'd worked in Las Vegas before and always wanted to get back here because I hated the bureaucracy that was in General Motors. And so we just packed up the kids and we came out. And by the time we got here, we had $200. The good news was that since I'd been in the Air Force for a while, I was eligible for a VA loan, and back then Las Vegas was a go-go town. And for $99, you could qualify for a mortgage with a VA. So we bought a house we couldn't possibly afford just by putting down $99, and we moved in. Now I got a house. We went for about 6 months without any furniture, but we had little cots and stuff, and so we started selling. I literally had $200 of cash after we made that big down payment to start the company with. And there were times in those early days when I had this progressive jackpot display that was about this long and weighed about 20 pounds. And frankly, I was broke. I didn't have money for gas, so I'd be walking up and down the strip carrying that thing on my shoulder to go to each casino. And back then, that wasn't a shameful thing. Nobody looked at me and said, "How long you been in business? Show me your plan, show me your financials. Here's my purchasing department. Fill out these forms and do all this other stuff." They just said, "That idea might work. That seems like a reasonable price. You seem like a guy I can trust. Let's give it a try." And we did, and we grew. And lots of other small businesses grew. But what we found was, as time went on, it didn't work so well anymore. The casinos got busier, bigger. They became more risk averse. Even Steve Wynn's place all of a sudden had a purchasing department. Steve was too busy to talk about this stuff. In fact, I went to see him one time and he goes, well, you know, they want to protect me against myself. I'm trying too many ideas and not all of them work out. And so in the name of efficiency, in the name of these spreadsheets, we killed innovation. And I don't mean to claim that I'm the only innovator around. I'm saying that there's a lot of other people that did a lot of great things, but that our current system does not allow them the chance. And that your current way of doing things isn't going to take you into the future. Isn't there a deal we can make here? Isn't there a way that we can build a future together? Isn't there a way that we can all take a little bit of risk, that we can all work towards the common goal of recruiting new people to play, of giving them a good time, of giving them an experience that they want to repeat, of going jointly to the regulators and to the legislatures and explaining to them what we need to make this industry thrive again, of being proud of what we do. When I started in gambling, it was a shame, it was a sin. When I started ET in '82, we went to hire a couple of people, engineering friends of mine that lived in Arizona. They both worked at Hewlett-Packard, and they loved the stuff that we were building. They were so, they just loved, they'd call me up, what are you doing today, and all this stuff. So I offered them a job. Well, I couldn't live in Las Vegas. That'd be terrible. I couldn't move my family there. And we had that stigma for a long time, and there's still a little bit of that left in the gaming industry. But if we can reposition gambling as entertainment, as a noble activity, as something that stands on equal footing with theater, movies, literature, music, and it should, we have a very bright future. Now, a lot of you are going to listen to this and go, he's nuts. And I'll tell you right now that the difference between vision and delusion is very thin. And only the future will tell what we've got. But I hope that some of you will think about your organization, and that some of you will challenge your organization to step out and do more, to try new things, to work to attract new players even if instant money doesn't flow. Because we no longer have this light switch capability where we open the casino, we flip on the lights, and everything's bright and the money's pouring in. From now on, we have to work for it, just like everybody else. We're just another retail business. We can please customers or not, they don't owe us a thing.